Hi everyone, welcome back to Nick's Diecast. In today's video, I'll be showing you and reviewing this 1/18 scale Mercedes Benz ML55 AMG made by Maisto, or Maisto depending on how you like to pronounce their name. I got this model from a toy train show for only $15, which to me was definitely a steal, considering that this model is no longer being made, and it hasn't been made for quite some time. It happens to be the only 1/18 scale model you can get of the ML55. So I thought that was awesome that I was able to find it for that price. And the fact it was in the original box as well just made this a fantastic deal. The vendor had some other Maisto 1/18 scale models as well, but this one did, stick out to me because I do like to collect models of Mercedes Benz's, and the fact that he had it for $15 I thought was fantastic. This model is no longer being made, but when Maisto was making it, it did come in this really cool dark red metallic that you see here. It's sort of like a brick red or like a Bordeaux, I think, is the right color name for it. And also a silver. And Maisto, for a short time, made a dark blue version of this model. It was, I believe, some kind of like a limited dealer edition version, and I believe it was only produced in 5,000 units. But the most common version seems to be this red version, and the silver version seems to be almost as common, but I feel like when you look up pictures of this particular model, the red version seems to pop up the most. You can find this particular online on sites such as eBay for between $20 and maybe $40 to $50, depending on which color of the model you're getting, which version, and whether or not it happens to be in the original box that it came in. In my case, I got it for that really great price of $15. That's less than you would pay for a new current Maisto model at Sam's Club or a similar wholesale club. So I thought that was a really good price for $15. But I will, of course, be reviewing this as I would if I were looking at it towards like the $30+ price range. So this model is based off the 2000 Mercedes Benz ML55 AMG. And that was actually the first model year that this particular car was sold. The Mercedes Benz M-Class was sold between 1997 and 2015, with the first generation being sold between 1997 and 2004. And I believe it was facelifted around 2002 or so. Now today, the M-Class is still being made, but they call it the GLE class instead. They made that name change around 2015. And the ML55, which is like the high performance variant of the first generation M-Class, was sold between 2000 and 2004. And Maisto actually made both the regular M-Class, specifically the ML320, and they made, of course, the ML55, which is what this model is. There are some differences in terms of visual aspects between the two models. Like for the ML320, you have different wheels. I think they're also 5-spokes, but they're like a different style. You have a chrome like bumper guard on the front bumper, and then you have chrome like running boards on the sides, and that does come in some different paint colors as well. And the interior is a slight bit different in terms of some of the visual details. But that is similar to what you would see for the real versions of the real cars. So this review, of course, will primarily focus on the ML55, but the overall quality, I would say, lines up with the ML320. As far as the ML55 goes, I believe Maisto only made it in the 1/18 scale version that you see here. But when thinking about the overall quality and details of this model, I think it does line up quite well with the models that Maisto is producing to this day. Although I think if Maisto were to re-release this particular model, there would be some improvements that they could make on it. And I'll talk about that as I go throughout the video here. So we'll go ahead and take a look at the details of the model. We'll start up here at the front. Maisto, I think, did a decent job with capturing the overall look and shape of this particular car. This was the first high-performance Mercedes-Benz model from the AMG series in the form of an SUV, so that was kind of a big deal at the time. This is definitely a significant model to Mercedes-Benz's lineup. And a fun fact about the M-Class and then the GLE class is that they're all actually built here in the United States, in the state of Alabama. And you actually see that back here with this license plate. So I thought that was pretty cool to learn that when I was doing some research on the real car. But Maisto, I think, once again, did a decent job with the overall look and shape of this particular car. I think as far as the front end goes, the headlights are the right overall shape, but I think the sections that are kind of more towards the grille should be a little bit pointier. And the headlights themselves, I think, should be a slight bit more narrow from top to bottom and a little bit longer. And same goes for the various portions of the bumper and the grille as well. The real car had it as like a slightly different shape, I think, for those various parts of the front end. But as far as the Maisto model goes, they did do, I think, a decent job with capturing the look and shape of at least the front end here. But I think some more fine detailing in terms of the headlight shapes probably would have been welcome. But speaking of the headlights, they are fairly well done, I would say. There is kind of a gap between the top portion of this headlight and where the hood is lined up. And the lens is a slight bit loose, but this is a Maisto model from around 2001 or 2002. So some quality problems like that are to be anticipated. They have definitely improved on a lot of the quality of their models in more recent years, for sure. There are pegs in the headlights as well, and it's kind of on the outside portion of the headlight. You can't really see it from a far distance, but when you look at them closely, you can kind of see them. But not really a big deal. I've seen far worse pegs on model car headlights for sure. Maisto, I think, did a good job with the center grille and badge, and also with the badge on the hood too. This is a perforated grille, which is really cool, I think. And the Mercedes Benz 3-pointed star badge is actually a separately cast chrome plastic piece, which is really cool. This badge on the hood is just a sticker, but at least the sticker is pretty well detailed, I would say. And it is actually centered with the hood. It's not like, you know, smudged over or anything like that, or, you know, like stuck on like off center. It's right in the center where it should be, and it does look well done for a sticker. The lower bumper is made out of plastic. There's actually a very slight color difference between the paint of the plastic and the paint of the metal, but you can't really see that unless you look at it like really closely. If this model were to be re-released today, Maisto would probably correct that issue with having a more, I guess, better paint finish between the plastic and the metal parts. That being said, though, the rest of the paint quality on the car, I would say, is pretty well done for an old Maisto model. The orange peel that you typically see on Maisto models of this vintage is not really that present on this particular model. I was able to kind of see it in some very tiny like regions here and there, but aside from that, the paint finish looks fantastic. This dark metallic red that you see was available on the real car too. And this is actually, I think, my favorite color for this particular version of the M class. Taking a look at the side of the model, Maisto, I think, did a great job with these wheels. The ML55 came standard with these 5-spoke wheels that you see here. You also have the AMG inscription on one spoke of each of the 4 wheels. And this model also has branded tires as well, which is very cool. These are the real Dunlop tires that you would see on the real car. I always liked that Maisto was putting these branded tires on their models back in the day. Of course, you also get full steering and suspension on the model too. You do have these side indicator lights on the fenders. They're just painted on, unfortunately, but at least they are on there. Nice sturdy side mirrors done in separately cast pieces of plastic. Nice to see that. And the door handles are actually just kind of ingrained in the metalwork. They aren't done as separately cast plastic pieces, but at least they are of a matte finish to, I guess, simulate the plastic that you would see on the real car. Same goes for the pillars on here too. They're just painted on, they're not done as separately cast plastic pieces, but from a distance they all look good, I would say. You also have the molded in roof racks on the model too. They're nice and sturdy. Occasionally for these budget models, if they do have the roof racks, they are sometimes a little bit loose, but on this model, they're nice and tight on the car, which I do like to see. Taking a look at the back, again, you have the license plate from Alabama on there. It is a manufacturer plate. I thought that was a nice detail touch. ML55, November 1999. Very cool. You also have the nice badging back here too. I think the ML55 inscription is a little bit too big, but at least it looks good. And then the AMG inscription, I think, is the right proportion and size and shape to what you would see on the real car. And then, of course, you have the smaller Mercedes Benz badge on this rear hatch, too. The wiper is unfortunately just molded into the rear window glass, and it looks pretty cheap, especially when you look at it up close like this. If this were to be re-released today, Maisto would probably make it as a separately cast plastic piece instead of just like a molded in line, which is pretty much what this thing is on the rear window glass. So that, I think, would have been more welcome to have that as a separately cast plastic piece, but not a big deal, especially for a Maisto model that was released in 2000. And the Maisto did a decent job with these taillights. There is a large peg that you can see in the center of each of the lights, but from a distance you really can't see them as well. And there is kind of a gap between where the hatch meets the taillight. Interesting thing is that the hatch is actually sealed, but it almost seems like you can lift it based off the gap here between this taillight. Not so much with this taillight, but again, not really a big deal. If this model were to be re-released today, you really wouldn't see these, big gaps between the plastic and the metalwork. I think that would have been a welcome improvement to this model, is having the better, cast headlights and taillights. But as far as a budget model goes, they definitely do the job, I think. And then you have the chrome exhaust pipes down here too. And similar to the front bumper, the rear bumper is cast in plastic as opposed to metal. And there is, again, that kind of slight difference in color between the metal portions of the car and the plastic portions, but not really a big deal if you don't look at it in certain lighting. You can sort of see it in this lighting here, but if you look at it from a distance or if you look at it in kind of a more darker setting, you really can't tell. In terms of the opening features of the model, you unfortunately do not get the opening rear doors or the opening rear hatch. I was not surprised to see the sealed rear doors on this model because in most cases for Maisto's models of 4-door vehicles, of the sedans or the SUVs, the rear doors are 9 times out of 10 sealed. So I was not surprised to see that. I was a bit surprised to see that they had the rear hatch of the model sealed, or the rear liftgate of the model sealed. I know for the ML320, Maisto's model of that, it does have kind of a really big spare tire, mounted to the back. And I know that spare tire blocks the rear hatch. So I'm not really sure if they decided to have the rear hatch sealed for that reason. And then when they made the model of the ML55, which is pretty much the same car in terms of the basic body, that they decided to keep the hatch or liftgate sealed for this model too. I'm not really sure what the decision was for the rear liftgate being sealed, but I guess it's not really a huge deal because they do at least put some detail in the rear trunk area. You can kind of see it a little bit through this window as you see the reflection of my phone camera lens. But there is a full plastic liner back here. It's going to be kind of hard to see with the glare and everything. But although they have this rear portion sealed, you can still see some details back there behind the rear seat. So at least Maisto put the detail in there. You do, however, get the opening hood, which opens up like this. It's actually quite stiff when you first open it, and then it gets a little bit less stiff when you raise it up higher. And this does come with the prop rod too, which is nice in case the hood ever goes bad and doesn't stay up on its own. You can use the prop rod like that. Now for 2000, the Mercedes Benz ML55 did come with the 5.4 liter V8, and I think Maisto did a good job of replicating the engine of the model in here for sure. You can see several different plastic pieces in here. It's not just one single mold. You can actually see some different wires going down the sides of the main block. You also have the Mercedes Benz badge and the AMG inscriptions on the main block. You actually have 2 fans in the front here, which is a really cool touch. And you can actually see down in the bottom of the car too. This was during the time where Maisto was putting a lot of detail into the engines of their models, and you can certainly see that with this model here. It does look good up on the shelf when you have the hood raised like so. And the engine detail on the ML320, I believe, is just as good. Of course, that engine will be slightly different because it wasn't the AMG engine, because this is the ML55 AMG, and the ML320 came with the standard. I think it was maybe a V6 engine or something like that. But the overall details, I think, are going to be kind of the same in terms of multiple plastic pieces and some more fine details like fans in the front and the different wires going down the sides of the main block. So very cool to see this in kind of standard practice for a Maisto model from the early 2000s, which is cool to see. And of course, you also have the opening front doors. They open up on dogleg hinges, but they are pretty stiff, which is nice to see. And the interior detail, I think, is very well done for an older Maisto model. You can see with the seats, they do look and feel even like the real seats you would see on the real car. A nice kind of perforated leather pattern with kind of this wrinkle pattern going on the center portions of the seat backs and on the seat bottoms too. Same goes for the rear seat. The seats themselves seem to be a slight bit small compared to what you would see on the real car, but aside from that, they are the right shape and appearance to what you would see when you compare these seats to the real seats of the real car. You don't get seat belts in this model. If Maisto were to re-release this particular model or release it today, you would, of course, probably get the additional details with the plastic seat belts for each of the seats. But from here, you can really get a good look at the two different textures that you see on the seats. The solid detailing continues on the dashboard and the center stack of this model. You can see all the different buttons are painted on. You actually have the center screen on there too. And then even on the steering wheel, you have very small buttons on there, and the airbag symbol, as well as the Mercedes Benz badge in the center portion of the steering wheel. Now the ML320's dashboard will look a little bit different, where you do not have the different wood grain texture that you see for the ML55, and you also don't have that center screen either. I think it either has more buttons or just less buttons in general. But aside from that, the rest of the dashboard looks very well done too. You do have the nice texture that you would see if this were the real dashboard of the real car. So really good job, I think, for a Maisto model, especially in terms of fine details on this dashboard, which I really do like to see. And there is decent detailing on the door panels too. They're just kind of done in a single gray plastic look and texture, but they do actually mold in the door pockets, which I thought was a cool touch. There, I think, should be some more buttons, at least as far as like around the door handles go. But I think for a budget model, the door panels look pretty well detailed. As far as the undercarriage goes, there is some slight detail down here. You can actually see the different components of the engine, which is really cool. And of course, the exhaust system is done in chrome plastic, which is typical for a Maisto model. You do see some additional details molded in the black plastic, and there is some separately cast plastic pieces going on down here. But I think for a budget model, Maisto did a good job down here too. And you do have those perforations underneath the front bumper, which is what you would see on the real car. So I think for a budget model, especially one that was made in the early 2000s, Maisto did a really good job with the overall details of the model and with the build quality too. There are certainly some aspects that could be improved upon, like the lack of detail with the different lights and with that rear wiper back there, and some different, fine details such as adding the seat belts and having the plastic portions match up better with the metal portions as far as the paint quality goes. But again, this was made around 2001, maybe 2002 or so. And for that reason, I think the model does hold up well to newer Maisto models that have been made in the last few years or so. So I think as long as you're paying under $50 for this particular model, unless you happen to find that rare dark blue version, and same goes for the ML320. I definitely prefer this version over the ML320. I think this version has a slight bit better detail than the other version, but both are pretty similar once again as far as the overall details and the build quality goes. If you can find this model for a good price, as long as you're paying like under $50, I think it would definitely be a good addition to any collection of modern cars or Mercedes Benz models in general. So feel free to comment down below with your thoughts on the video or on the model, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.